You know that person who always says, "I'm good, don't worry about it," every single time? Maybe that person is you. Your car breaks down. You figure it out. You're drowning in assignments. You stay up all night instead of asking for an extension. You're stressed, overwhelmed, exhausted. But when someone says, "Do you need help?" you almost feel offended. No, I don't need help. I can handle it. From the outside, people who never ask for help look strong, independent, reliable, the rock everyone else leans on. But here's the twist. Psychologically, that refusal to ask for help is rarely just about independence. It's about something much deeper. And if you've ever felt a tightness in your chest at the thought of relying on someone else, this is going to make a lot of sense. Let me paint you a scene. Imagine you're carrying groceries. Not one bag, not two, every single bag. They're cutting into your fingers, your arms are shaking, but you refuse to make 2 trips. Someone walks by and says, "Want me to grab a few?" And you smile, slightly annoyed. No, it's fine, but it's not fine. So why do you keep walking? Psychologically, people who never ask for help often learned very early that needing others is risky. Maybe you grew up in a house where emotions were brushed aside. Maybe asking for support was met with, "You're overreacting." Or maybe you were the responsible one, the mature one, the one who couldn't afford to fall apart. When you grow up in an environment where support feels unreliable, your brain adapts. It says, "Okay, we'll just do it ourselves." This is where attachment theory quietly enters the room. Researchers like John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth found that early relationships shape how safe we feel depending on others. If support was inconsistent or dismissive, you may develop what psychologists call an avoidant attachment style. That doesn't mean you don't want connection. It means your nervous system learned that relying on others might lead to disappointment, rejection, or vulnerability. So you build a different strategy, self-sufficiency. And at first, it works beautifully. You become competent, resourceful, capable. You solve your own problems. Teachers trust you. Friends depend on you. You look like you have it all together. And that competence becomes part of your identity. Here's where it gets tricky. Over time, your brain starts linking asking for help with weakness. Not logically, but emotionally. It feels uncomfortable, almost threatening. Studies in social psychology show that humans are wired to value belonging, but we're also deeply sensitive to status. If asking for help makes you feel lower, smaller, or less competent, your ego steps in like a bodyguard. Nope, we don't do that. But let's question something for a second. Why does asking for help feel like weakness in the first place? In many cultures, especially individualistic ones, independence is glorified. Think about the archetype of the lone hero. Batman broods alone in the dark. Sherlock Holmes solves everything with pure intellect. The self-made entrepreneur. The silent, strong friend. We admire the image of someone who doesn't need anyone. But neuroscience tells a different story. Your brain is literally designed for cooperation. Mirror neurons fire when you watch someone else act. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, increases trust and connection. When you share a burden and someone responds with care, your stress hormones drop. Cortisol decreases. Your body relaxes. You are biologically built to lean on others. So when you refuse help, you're not being superhuman. You're overriding your wiring. And often, the reason isn't strength, it's fear. Fear of being a burden. This one is huge. If you've ever thought, "They already have enough going on," or "I don't want to bother anyone," you're not alone. Research on perceived burdensomeness shows that people often overestimate how much their needs inconvenience others. In reality, most people actually feel closer and more valued when they're able to help. Think about the last time someone trusted you enough to open up. Did you feel annoyed? Or did you feel honored? Exactly. But for someone who never asks for help, the internal story is different. There's a quiet belief, my problems are mine. If I can't handle them, that means I'm not enough. And that belief usually didn't appear out of nowhere. Maybe you were praised for being so independent. Maybe vulnerability wasn't modeled in your home. Maybe when you did ask for help once, you were dismissed or let down, and your brain decided, never again. The brain loves efficiency. It takes one painful memory and builds a rule around it. But here's the philosophical twist. Independence is powerful. Self-reliance is admirable. The ability to stand on your own feet is a strength. The problem is when it becomes armor so thick that no one can reach you. Imagine wearing a suit of medieval armor all day. It protects you, but it also isolates you. You can't feel a hug through steel. People who never ask for help often confuse invulnerability with strength, but real resilience, according to modern psychology, isn't about never falling. It's about flexibility, the capacity to bend without breaking, to know when to stand alone and when to lean. There's also a control element here. When you do everything yourself, you stay in control. You don't have to rely on someone else's timing, effort, or reliability. For some people, control equals safety. If you've experienced chaos, unpredictability, or betrayal in the past, control becomes your anchor. But control has a cost. You get tired, really tired. Chronic self-reliance can quietly turn into burnout because you're not just handling your responsibilities, you're handling everyone's. You become the therapist friend, the dependable teammate, the one who never complains. And over time, resentment can creep in, not because others are selfish, but because you never gave them the chance to show up for you. It's like being the only one rowing a boat while everyone else thinks you enjoy the workout. And here's something counterintuitive. When you never ask for help, you may unintentionally rob others of connection. Humans bond through reciprocity, through give and take. When you only give, the relationship becomes unbalanced. Not dramatically, but rather subtly, but enough that something feels off. There's also a fascinating cognitive bias at play called the spotlight effect. We tend to overestimate how much others are scrutinizing us. So when you imagine asking for help, your brain projects this dramatic scene where everyone notices your incompetence. In reality, most people are too busy worrying about their own lives. Your vulnerability is rarely as loud as you think it is, but let's go deeper. Sometimes, never asking for help is tied to identity. If you've built your self-worth around being capable, needed, or strong, asking for help can feel like identity betrayal. Who am I if I'm not the one holding it all together? That question can be scary. But what if your worth isn't measured by how much you can carry alone? What if strength is actually relational? Look at history. The most successful leaders, innovators, even revolutionaries rarely worked alone. Martin Luther King Jr. had entire communities behind him. Marie Curie collaborated deeply in her research. Humans create impact together. They always have. Even evolution tells us this. Early humans survived not because one person was the strongest, but because the group cooperated. Asking for help wasn't weakness, it was survival strategy. So if your brain resists asking for help, it doesn't mean you're broken. It actually means you adapted. You learned self-reliance for a reason. And that reason probably made sense at the time. The question is, does it still serve you now? Imagine this. Instead of seeing help as proof of weakness, you see it as strategic collaboration. Instead of, I can't handle this, it becomes, I don't have to handle this alone. Feel the difference in your body. One is shame-based, the other is connection-based. You don't have to swing to the opposite extreme. You don't have to suddenly share every struggle with everyone. Growth here is subtle. Maybe it's something simple like texting a friend. Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Maybe it's asking a classmate for notes instead of pretending you understood everything. Maybe it's letting someone carry one grocery bag. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you allow yourself to receive support, the stronger your relationships become. The more secure you feel, the stronger you become. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be the person who never asks for help. The goal is to be the person who can handle life and also knows they're allowed to be human. You don't lose independence when you accept help. You expand it. You move from rigid self-sufficiency to flexible strength. So if you're that person who always says, I'm fine, maybe pause next time. Ask yourself gently, am I fine? Or am I just used to carrying everything alone? There's no judgment here, just curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, try setting one bag down. If this resonated with you, I'd love to know, are you the independent type? Or are you learning to ask for help? Drop a comment. Reflect on it. And if you want to keep exploring the psychology behind the patterns we live by without even noticing, stick around. There's a lot more happening in your mind than you think.